My name is Amanda.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are the Extra Sisters.
So sit back, relax, and let's get creepy.
Beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and glides and slides across the floor, right through the door, and all around the wall. A splotch, a blotch, be careful of the blob.
Yes!
You're welcome.
So good.
Please don't copyright us. It was just for funsies. So there you go, Mom. All those years and years and years of private vocal lessons with me doing nothing with them. You're welcome.
They were well worth it. It was amazing.
I didn't even prepare that.
If you guys hadn't guessed, by now we're doing The Blob from 1958.
And if you haven't watched it, please stop this right now. Go watch it. It's from 1958. It's really easy to find because not a lot of movie studios are freaking out about it. So, yeah, you should go watch this. It's a classic.
Yeah, it's something I hadn't seen since I was really little. I want to say like 8.
Yeah, same here. The only thing, I remembered a few like imagery things when I was watching it. Right. I was like, okay, I remember that.
Like the theater?
Yep.
Or the freezer?
Yep.
Yep.
That's
basically all I remembered.
Yeah, I actually remembered when I was a kid, it scared me. And specifically when it is creeping under the freezer door.
Yeah.
That I remember that actually scaring me as a kid. So this isn't something that you're going to watch and have to sleep with the lights on.
No.
It is such a fun movie.
Yes, absolutely.
The theme song is truly a bop. Clearly. Yeah. It's going on my Spotify playlist. Just
it's amazing. I even
forever.
wrote that too. I love this song and find it.
Yeah, well, it's on Spotify. If you put in the Blob theme by the 5 Blobs, it's on there. So go listen to that. Listen to my lovely pitchy rendition.
It was amazing.
Thank you. And yeah, so we kind of talked about, is this a creature feature or an alien movie? But we decided an alien movie.
I think it's an alien movie. I can see creature feature. I'm just going with alien movie.
So in the beginning of this movie, something crashes to Earth.
Yes.
And something comes out and starts marking people up. So you get, so Steve McQueen, this was his first role. And if you don't know who Steve McQueen is, where have you been? He's a huge movie star.
Yes,
huge
absolutely.
Classic movie star. This was his very first role.
Yep.
And it opens with him and his lady friend, Jane. And right off the bat, I was
Janie
like,
girl.
Yes. He was like, Janie girl. And she's like, my name is not Janie girl. My name is Jane. And I was like, get him. You don't take that, Jane. So I really liked her character. She was a really strong female lead. And for 1958, like,
right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot. And she's running around in this cute little dress. I'm like,
with all these other guys, she's keeping up with them and everything.
Yeah, she's not like freaking out.
No.
It's really good. The music is amazing. I got a very Scooby-Doo-esque vibe because Scooby-Doo came out in the 60s.
Feel like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I literally wrote down in my notes, nostalgic Scooby-Doo-esque music. And my dog was really into this movie. So you know it's good.
I saw the picture, and I'm just saying, you might want to post it on something, because other people need to see
she
how
was just
into it she
sitting
was.
at the end of my bed. Now, there are a lot of dogs barking in this movie, but she just tilted her head, and usually
so fascinated.
with dogs barking, usually she'll start barking back. Even at, like, Secret Life of Pets, like little animated ones, she can see that it's a dog, and she'll start freaking out. But she was just watching, and she'd sat at the end of the bed, and then she just kind of laid down and watched the rest of the movie with me. I was like, even my pug likes this movie, so you have to watch it. But this thing crashes to Earth, and this old gentleman goes and he finds it, and he finds this, it looks like just a little, probably palm-sized little bit of slime that you see on all the Instagrammers do these days with their slime ASMR videos. And
what else do you do with slime but pick it up with a stick, right? Just poke it.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have just picked it up with my hands. So, I mean, I would have just got faster. So he picks up the slime and it basically encases over his hand, and he starts panicking because he can't get it off. And so he runs out into the road, and Jane and his actual name in the movie is Steve also. And Steve are driving along and they almost hit him. And so they put him in the car and time to take him to the doctor. Hopefully the doctor's in.
Right.
And then they go to the doctor, and the doctor is indeed in.
As he's leaving, you can see on his face, he's like, oh man, I almost have to go home.
That is so us. Patients come in right before we close, and they're like, I need this very complex thing. And we're like, are you serious? And this was so complex, he even thought this thing kept getting bigger and bigger. And I made a note that this guy, it's attached to this man, and it's getting bigger, and he seems to be in immense pain.
Right.
Like, this thing is not just like, it's like eating him.
Yes. That's like eating his arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, if it's eating his arm, I'm just going to say one thing. Why does it have to have fingers? I don't understand. It's already eating his arm. Why is it still shaped like fingers?
I don't know. But he's clearly in pain, so this doctor is like, we're going to have to amputate. He's considering amputating. I did make a note, though. He tells Steve and Jane to go back to where they thought they saw this. They thought it was a shooting star or something, and see if they can find out anything. But because they were in a hurry to get this poor suffering man to the doctor, and he went around these 3 other teenagers in this car, they had to race.
I know. Thank you. I literally... What's with the drag racing scene? WTF,
I
mate.
will tell you, and it will make me unpopular. Egos.
Egos.
That is exactly why they had to race Steve.
Why was it in the movie?
Egos.
I mean, I love it. Like, his little banter with the cop at the end, loved it. It made me laugh, but still, why?
And they were able, at least, to set up that the cop and Steve already had, like, an established relationship. So the cop's name is Dave, and he's like, what are you doing, right? Like,
very
he's lecturing
him. Sheriff.
Yeah, so they get off, and, they were racing backwards also, and the cop's just like, you kids. Like, you're gonna kill somebody, first of all, without this power steering. Like, come on. So we have this little side drag race, which you think is going to be like this Grease-esque kind of thing where they're enemies, but then they end up...
They're friends. Like, it's so weird.
Because they are like, oh, you're the big shot in town, all this trash talk, and then they're like, okay, buddy, what do you need? Let's go find this space alien thing that just crashed to the ground. So they all go, and they're looking for this thing, and they find the man's dog, and they take him, because Jane's like, he'll starve, because that man's not going to come back, so kudos to Jane. I wrote, yes, save the dog, on my notes. But it cuts back to the doctor, and
the hand, which I made a note, totally looks like Jell-O. Like, he moves the blanket, and it's just Jell-O. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to also mention, when they're talking about going and helping Steve find this alien thing, they try to convince him to first go see a real nice spooky bit. And that is, they're referring to a horror movie.
Which is 80 cents. 80-cent movie.
But more importantly, this is now a spooky bit podcast.
Okay. Spooky bit podcast.
Spooky bit. We're going to see a real good spooky bit. I really love that.
For 80 cents.
Yeah. And so he's realizing this thing is getting bigger and is starting to obviously become a problem. He's like, I'm going to amputate.
And he sees it moving under the sheet.
Yeah, the sheet starts moving.
That actually did creep me out a little bit.
Did it?
Ooh, thinking of the doctor in there by himself and the sheet's moving?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and there are a couple... Well, first of all, he calls the nurse in and says, hey, I'm going to need your help. So this poor nurse comes in, and her name is Nurse Kate. And she comes in to help him. But then the old man essentially is consumed. And there is no saving this old man. And they realize that this blob, or they never say blob, is dangerous, obviously. It's eating this thing. And it literally is just it's a very well-named movie. It's just a blob of like this gelatinous nastiness going around eating people. And poor Kate, they get separated, her and the doctor. They're in different rooms, kind of on each side of the blob. And I have a failed attempts to kill it count here.
Yes. What? She tries to throw acid on it.
Doesn't work. It just flashes a bunch of 1950s special effects.
If acid doesn't work, why would you shoot a gun at it?
Yeah, so gun doesn't work. Acid doesn't work. So we're up to 2 kill attempts now that don't work. It gets more later. And at this point, it also goes, after it kills the doctor, it goes to this mechanic.
Yeah.
Kills the mechanic. Eats the mechanic. Whatever. Consumes, eats, kills. They're gone and with no trace. And then it goes into this little grocery store.
Yes.
Which is where Steve and Jane end up seeing it. So.
And they hear the puppy, and it's so sad. The dog gets away, but I was
I literally wrote down, it's all scratched out here. I said, yes, save the dog when they initially took the dog. And then I wrote, oh no,
I did
the dog got
same thing. Is the dog gonna get et? And I said, of course it is. It's a horror movie. And then I scratched it out and said, no.
Yep, our notes are all scribbled because it makes you think the dog gets killed.
Yes, and I'm so happy for a horror movie not to kill the animal.
Yes. Thank you, Blob.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wrote dog death because I was going to give a warning about a dog death, and so I scratched it out. But they go into the shop, and something I really appreciated about this movie, they've gotten the cops involved. So I forgot to mention, Steve sees the death of the doctor. He sees it through the window, and so he gets the cop involved, and they're obviously like, this Jell-O's not eating people. You're crazy, kooky kids, and you're lying.
Yeah.
And so they go and they check out the doctor's office. And it's obviously looks like it's been ransacked.
Right. Like he's been robbed.
Exactly. And they think that the teenagers just like played a prank or something. But what I really appreciated about this movie, I don't know if this was like before all these movie stereotypes, but every single time they went into a dark place, one of their first priorities was finding a light. They blew a fuse at the doctor's office, so they were like, we got to fix the fuse, and then we can further assess the situation.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
And I am loving how you're picking up these little details that I'm not even noticing in movies.
And like when they go to the grocery store, which was the point we were getting to, it's dark, and he's like, we got to find the light. We got to find the light. Now, they don't always do it right away, but that's a point they make to like turn on the light. And I'm like, thank you.
Finally, not a horror movie going, why don't you turn on the light?
Yeah, the whole time you're like, there's a light switch right there on the wall. This is like 20 whatever, and we have electricity.
Yes.
Turn on the damn light. You're not doing that in this movie, because I don't know if this was just before horror movie cliches or if this was just a smarter horror movie and these were smarter characters, because you really do appreciate the characters. I thought they were great.
Yeah.
The teenagers, are trying to warn this town of this horrible thing, and nobody's listening to them, but they're going after this creature essentially on their own to try to figure out how to stop it,
right?
Even though nobody believes them.
Makes me think a lot about, no offense, but millennials and baby boomer problems today. It always happens. It's not just millennials and baby boomers. You always have the older generation having problems with the younger generation.
Yep.
And this movie just proves it once again.
Even in the 1958.
Yes.
Yep. So when they get into this grocery store, the Blob basically corners them, and they have to go into a freezer. And this is the part when I was a kid that I remember. And it's coming after them, and they're in this meat freezer, and it starts slipping under the door. Creeps. Slides across the floor into the door. Okay. So it goes into the freezer, but it retracts. And they don't know why. But that's the first little hint you get
something
of how this thing might not tolerate certain things, temperatures maybe. And so it leaves them alone to go just cause more mayhem in this town. The first real emergency situation that this thing causes is the movie theater, which I thought was really interesting because I guess it's a projection room. The Blob gets in through the ventilation system.
And eats the poor projectionist.
He's just reading a book.
Yeah.
Playing the spooky bit. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then it starts coming out of the top of the theater, and people are just like running for their lives. Talk about the fun run real quick. We're talking about the theater, and people were these teenagers in this movie. It figured out that this is going on, so there's a scene or a shot where people are just running full speed out of the theater, screaming.
The famous scene of the Blob is people running away from the Blob, coming out of these two double doors, just oozing out after these people running down the street. And nowadays, every anniversary, about July 13th, every single year in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, which is where the Colonial Theater that they filmed this at was, every year people flock to Phoenixville for 3 days. And one of the things that they do is they all gather in the theater, and they have a fun run. It's a Blobfest run that they all run out of the theater just for fun.
I would do that so we should go sometime.
Well, for somebody who grew up in Manitou Springs, where you have the coffin races, where it's just a bunch of people who dress up and make a coffin that they then run down the road. It's so weird and
creepy,
crazy, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that someday, absolutely.
Well, we can put it on our list of places we need to go film.
Yes.
We, side note, have a huge surprise, but it's not until October.
Yep, you guys are gonna have to wait, but it's gonna be worth it.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. Teaser, you got a lot of months, but it's really awesome. And I can't wait. Anyways, something I thought was really interesting, and Brad actually watched this movie with me, and he really enjoyed it too, and he's never seen it. And I've kind of thought a lot of people, especially nowadays, they'll go back and watch a horror movie from, you know, the 50s or the 40s, and they're like, this is lame. No. Like, he enjoyed it too, and something that he thought was interesting was these kids, to get the town up and out of bed to warn them, they set off the air raid sirens. And this was, you know, after World War II and at the cusp of, or in the Red Scare. Right. So, you know, all these people are getting out of bed and they're setting off all the fire alarms. They're honking all their horns. And so
the old guy who has, like, all the hats, like, he thinks it's a fire drill, so he puts on his fire hat. And then he thinks it's an air raid drill, so he's got an entirely different hat for that. And
he's got to get the right outfit on. Great. Which emergency are we dressing for? I got a closet full of them. He's like a current, how we have preppers today.
Yes, I love him.
Yeah. And so the whole town gathers in this little, I guess, town center outside this grocery store or whatever. And they're like, there is something and it is killing people in this town and you should all be worried and we have to do it. We have to figure something out. And all the rest of the cops are like, you kids are just causing problems. But Dave is the good cop. He's the one that didn't give Steve the ticket and he believes them. So then they get this town involved in basically looking for this. And then the movie theater thing happens and everybody is like, oh shit.
It's actually happening and coming for us.
Oops, exactly. And they stampede out of the movie theater. And then the other scene that I remember was this diner scene. So
I did not remember that.
Sweet Jane and her little brother. Jane has this little brother who's a damn idiot.
He's going to pop a cap in that.
I know, he takes this little... It's not like
it's a little cap gun.
Yeah, it's a little cap... Okay, yeah. And he starts shooting at the blob, and Jane's like, oh,
he unloads on it.
Yep.
Nothing
and then
happens.
He runs out of caps. He does indeed not cap it. And Jane has to grab him, and the closest, or the nearest shelter is in this diner.
Right.
But her and the little boy and Steve and the owner of the diner, or a worker, end up trapped in this diner, and the blob, for some reason, is coming for those 4 people and not the massive people right over here.
That ran away.
I don't know why. I don't know if you never know if it's intellectual or intelligent or if it just is seeking out things to eat. But it goes after these 4 people. It gets into this diner and they end up trapped in the cellar.
Right.
And I remember the diner scene and imagery of it like being encased. This blob gets so big that it just completely encases this diner. And I thought it was really cool. I was kind of watching it and it looked like miniatures to me, and it was. I looked it up and they made miniature sets and they basically like squeezed this, what was it? Silicone?
It was silicone and food coloring.
Yeah, red food coloring. And they squeezed it through like the movie theater windows at the top or whatever. They squeezed it through that and they put it over this little replica of the diner, and that's how they shot those special effects thing, because there was obviously no CGI, no none of that. They just had
to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another reason I love this movie so much, because they even like one time when the blob it was like, I think it was when it got acid on it, it like changed colors so you could see it reacting. I just appreciated that so much. I just love this movie. So they were down in the cellar and they can kind of radio out and another thing failed to kill them. They dropped a power line on it.
Yep.
Heat, fire, electricity.
All it did was light the diner on fire,
which
was great.
So there are now people trapped.
In a burning building.
Right. Also, something trying to eat them at the same time.
Yeah.
So, so they're trapped in the cellar and they eventually are trying to put out this fire and they're realizing that the CO2 coming from the fire extinguisher, it starts to retract.
Yep.
So they call out to the firemen and everyone standing outside and they're like, hey, cold, it's cold. And so they immediately don't waste any time and they get up and they go get all the CO2 fire extinguishers that they can find and they basically reduce this little blob and they're able to call the Air Force in to transport it, and it ends
to Antarctica
with the most ironic.
Yep.
They take it to Antarctica because it's cold there and there's glaciers and ice caps and it'll be cold forever.
No, it literally, there was a quote in it that I love. It said, as long as the Arctic stays cold.
Did you know that global warming is real?
I really hope they do one nowadays and bring the Blob back. Cause,
it would be perfect. Okay, so it's been all these years. The ice caps are melting. Mm-hmm. It's getting warmer. Granted, it's still like -20 every day in Antarctica or in the Arctic. But it is getting warmer. There aren't these ice caps. Yes. I mean, let's do a return of the Blob now because it's fitting because it's not as cold.
It would be so good.
Yeah. I literally wrote down LOL at the ice caps in my notes. So that's kind of like what the movie is, walking through it.
So this little B movie, it was actually just made as a teenage flick just to get people to go to the drive-in.
Yep.
And it ended up, this little B movie grossed $12 million.
Which is really unfortunate for Steve McQueen.
Yes.
Because they told him he was a new actor.
Yep. And he had no faith in the script.
He had no faith in this movie at all. And so they said, we will give you $2,000 up front right now, or you can get a percentage of whatever the movie brings in.
Yeah.
And he really undercut himself a lot.
The money up front.
Granted, he ended up being fine.
He did.
But he could have gotten a much better paycheck if he had just been like, okay, let's see what happens. So this is supposedly based on a true story. Granted, it's a huge stretch. Okay, so on September 27th, 1950, a newspaper ran an article with the headline, "Flying Saucer Just Dissolves." And there were 2 police officers that swore they'd seen this mysterious object fall from the sky. And when they got there, it was this purple gelatinous mass. And so even the FBI got involved, and it just became like a laughing stock, basically, of the entire country. And so fast forward to 1957, the producer, Jack Harris, was looking to make like a creature feature, but he couldn't come up with a premise. And so he heard about this UFO situation, and he said, okay, let's do that. It'll be this substance. And he made sure it had to be in color. It can't be cheap. It's going to have like, it's got to have some substance. That's basically what he wanted. And it's got to have good characters, and they have to have a good script and some good dialogue. And it was produced by a religious film company. So Valley Forge Films, they did a lot of Christian movies, but they weren't making the money that they wanted to. It just wasn't, they made some money, but the audience wasn't really. So they wanted to basically get the word of God out to as many people as they could. So this guy went and said, make this movie for me. It'll be big, and then you'll be known, and then you can spread the word as much as you want. So that's how he got them to do this movie. And it had a bunch of different titles. It was going to originally be called The Molten Meteor. And there was another one, The Glob That Girdled the Globe.
Wow, so that was a lot.
I literally was like reading that, and I'm like, I'm going to mess up this word. But by the time that he suggested the Blob, shooting was well underway. So the script never refers to it by name. Instead, it's just called a mass because they just didn't know what to call it.
Okay.
That's why it's never referred to as the Blob. And the song that I did a wonderful rendition of at the beginning of this.
Yes, it was amazing.
It made the Billboard Top 40.
I love that.
If you listen to the song, what I did in the beginning, that's the only lyrics the song has, and it just has it like 4 or 5 times. But the music is bumping. There's some awesome saxophone in that. Y'all gotta listen to it. Please just listen to it for me. And another interesting thing is, a lot of people at the time thought the Blob was a metaphor for communism. It was red. And so people were like, Red Scare.
Huh.
And 8 years earlier than that, the State Department had been basically infiltrated by what they said no less than 200 red communists. And so they thought that he was making a political statement out of it.
Wow.
Yep. And in Greece, this is the trailer that's on when they're at the drive-in. At the drive-in.
Oh, in the movie Grease. Yeah. Honestly, I thought you meant the country for a second.
Yep. And so now on our bucket list is to go to Blobfest.
Yes.
Because this movie was so great.
Someday we need to do that.
Yep.
It was amazing.
So I really enjoyed this movie. I go into it knowing that it's from 1958. But even then, when I watched it, I was like, the color is great. It's been remastered a bunch, but the color was great. It wasn't overacted, in my opinion. No. And it was just a really, really good movie. Of course, the Blob isn't going to be like horrifying. It's literally just silicone and red. But it's going around eating people. And it can get into pretty much any, you can't hide from it. If you lock the door, it's just going to go underneath it.
Right.
So it is a really scary premise. They did redo it in like 1988, but didn't really hear much about it. Don't really want to watch it personally.
I think I've seen it once, but I don't even remember it.
Yeah, so it wasn't something that we really wanted to talk about because the 1958 deserves its own.
Yeah, and we are choosing to do this year as the stuff that really started us on horror movies, and we both remembered this and remembered it fondly and from our childhood.
We need to have I think it's great to have like 1958 and then I do Bird Box.
Right, brand new movies and old ones.
A nice mix.
We're going to be doing some black and whites eventually. It's going to be all across the board.
Definitely. So I would definitely give this movie like probably a 4 out of 5.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I love old movies anyway, so honestly, I was watching it the whole time smiling, going, I'm so happy I'm watching this. So
Me too.
I would give it a 5 out of 5. But I love old movies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something you can watch just like laying in bed. It's not scary. It's just a really good, fun, spooky bit, if you will.
All right.
So we have a side story.
Yes, we do. So tonight at Amanda's house, we had to smudge her entire house again. And do you want to tell them what you did? What'd you do?
Are you mad at me?
I can't believe you did this again.
Listen, I needed a picture for our Instagram.
It's all for a picture.
So last week we talked about The Exorcist.
We did.
And by this point, y'all all know how I feel about The Exorcist. But...
and how I feel about Ouija boards.
As you should... but I really wanted a picture for our Instagram.
You say that, and then you're going to get possessed. Okay? Is the picture really worth it?
It was a good picture.
It was a good picture. Good job.
It got a lot of reach. Yeah.
You're
welcome. I sacrificed potentially my soul. So if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you saw I took a picture with a Ouija board background and I basically laid out The Exorcist 2 and The Exorcist 3 movies because we were going to review them. And if you don't know this, you can't really use movie posters because you'll get copyrighted. So you kind of have to be creative when you're, promoting, talking about a movie. So I was like, well, I have all these movies with covers. I'll put them on top of the Ouija board, which is how Reagan got possessed. So it'll be super great. And it was cute.
It was. It was a good picture. I will admit that.
But then, weird shit started happening again in my house. Did you notice anything when you came into my house today?
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so weird shit started happening in my house again. And every night since I took the picture, I've been waking up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, which
anybody out there who loves creepy movies and creepy stories, 3 o'clock is the witching hour, the devil's hour, whatever you want to call it.
Yep. And one of those nights, it was like almost 3 o'clock on the dot, something in our master bathroom shower just fell, and y'all know you've taken a shower, knocked something off, and it's so loud, people are like, are you okay in there?
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like I was awake right before it happened, even though I wasn't, because I even heard it like come off the wall and then fall.
Right.
And it woke me and my husband up. Our dogs started losing their shit, barking, and of course then I had to like turn on Bob's Burgers to go back to sleep because it was just abrupt, we're all awake. And I have a 5-month-old pit puppy, and she's fearless. I mean, she's a baby. Right. She doesn't, she hasn't learned fear unless she chews on my hand, And it was a morning. It was like Saturday or Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad was in our guest bathroom with the door open, and she lost it. She started barking at that bathroom, and all of her hair was standing up. And Brad was in there like, it's okay, come to me. And
she wouldn't go.
She wouldn't. And I went and I didn't grab her, but I went to pick her up and move her away from the room, and she peed. She's
terrified of something.
Mm-hmm. It hasn't happened since. They haven't been acting weird, but that bathroom is next to the closet that I keep the board in.
That's where I felt it tonight, by the way, was in that bathroom. Same place. And then something else happened when we went to smudge tonight.
Yeah, so when we smudge, I got the board out to smudge the board. And it has the original planchet in there. And again, if you didn't listen to our first episode, I have a Ouija board from 1972. It's a Parker Brothers Ouija board. It's really old. And I opened it, and part of the planchet, the needle, the part that indicates which letter it's on, is in this like little plastic circle, and it kind of looks like a nail that's in the middle of it. And it comes out of the middle of the planchet. And when I put it in the box, I was kind of rough with it, and the needle part wasn't in the planchet. When I opened the box tonight, I looked at you. I don't know what I looked like, but
you looked white and scared.
Well,
as you should have been.
The needle was perfectly in the center of the planchet. Like
back exactly where it was supposed to be.
Exactly where it was supposed to be if you were going to be talking with it. And you saw me. I popped it out and I had to work.
Yes, it took a while for you to get that back.
It is not easy. It doesn't just like fall in there. You have to kind of adjust it.
Not like if you jostled it on the top shelf, it
exactly.
would have fallen back in place.
Right, exactly. So I even took it to Brad and I was like, maybe I should get rid of it. And he was like, well, it could be because I can't reach the shelf it's on in the closet. So when I put it up, I kind of like put it up at an angle and then just kind of hit at it until it gets on the shelf. And he's like, it could have just like jostled into place. And I was like, maybe, but he didn't see me put the effort into getting the needle back into it. So I don't really know what I want to do with it at this point, because I don't really want someone else to get it and use it. Absolutely. I'm not going to use it. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, whatever is in that Ouija board or attached to it doesn't seem like it's going to do anything unless I do something.
No, it seems to be fine until you bring it out, and then it causes problems again.
And we smudged, and hopefully you'll walk into my bathroom before you leave and let me know.
Yeah, hopefully there's no dude standing there again. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I don't really know what I want to do with it, though, because, again, I don't want to just, like, because I think the guy that I got it from got it at, like, a Goodwill, which if that's where everybody sends their stuff if they don't want it anymore. And I just don't really want some kids or even...
that might actually play with it?
Yeah, or even like an unsuspecting adult that doesn't believe in it and is like, look, you guys, I got this, you know, at least here up in my closet. Now that it's happened twice, I thought, the first time could have been, we didn't know if it was the board or not. It was just like the only X factor. But now I've gotten the board out twice. And the first time, it was on display for weeks.
Yes.
This time, I literally only had it out for like 15 minutes.
Yep.
And I put it back in the box and put it up. So, that being said, I will not get it out again. I was going to put it behind glass in here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Do that.
I'm not going to. I don't even know, like I said, if I want it in my closet. But for the millionth time, I don't want somebody to end up with it and be irresponsible with it.
Absolutely.
That's not right. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll burn it. Maybe I'll just keep it away. Or maybe I will take it to like a place that incinerates for you, so it's not like it burned in my backyard or something like that. So if you have any experience with that, let me know. I'm not like sitting here terrified or scared or anything. I feel safe in my home, but definitely weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
And spooky.
No.
So there's your Ouija board update. Don't expect any more of them, because we're not getting.
I hope not.
We're not getting it out. But I did spend $50 on incense and sage.
Okay,
so
that's perfect.
We're stocked.
That's the good stuff to spend it on.
Even Brad, we were smudging the house and we were like, you have to bless yourself now. And he's like...
And he was on board. It was great.
He's like, okay, all right, I'll do it. So thank you for listening to episode 3 about the Blob. We really enjoyed watching this movie.
It was
and talking about it. You've got to watch it if you're a horror fan, just for the history. I mean, it's just awesome. And to say you've watched it too. So every week we're going to give you, and we have, if you've noticed.
We did in the last episode.
Yep. We're going to give you a little hint as to the movie we're going to be talking about next week by giving you the tagline for the movie.
Or a famous quote or something.
Yep. We couldn't find one for The Exorcist because all we came up with was your mother sucks cocks in hell. And we didn't want to put that, but I just did it anyways. But next week, she always gets a part. Stay creepy.